Live from Chicago, this is Bruce Dumont with our Beyond the Beltway analysis of national politics, featuring occasional injections of rumor and innuendo, all offered up by our panel of political insiders, pundits, power brokers, public servants, and most importantly, plain-speaking Americans from coast to coast. Tonight featuring commentary by Joe Morris, Ahmad Rahab, and Gidi Nishat. Our program tonight coming to you from our home base at the Sirius XM studios on Chicago's Great West Side, where our toll-free lines are open at 1-800-723-8289. That's 1-800-723-8289. If you'd like to email us a comment, our email address is btb@museum.tv. And if you'd like to join us on the World Wide Web, it's beyondthebeltway.com. And tonight, for the next 2 hours, we're going to be talking about the comments of President Obama last week in Cairo, Egypt, the ramifications of that speech, which was, it was well hyped and it's been well analyzed already. But again, the key analysis has not yet come from the American people, and this is your opportunity to offer that for the next couple of hours on our broadcast. 1-800-723-8289, and I'm very pleased to welcome some people that will have probably differing perspectives on what the president had to say last evening. And I want to begin by also identifying that every guest on our program tonight, at least in studio in Chicago, is an American citizen. Okay, just put that out there. Ahmad Rahab joins us. Ahmad, nice to have you with us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
You are an Egyptian American. You were born in Cairo. You are the executive director of the Chicago office of the Council on American Islamic Relations, and we'll talk more about that as the program unfolds this evening. But my question to you, as it will be to all of our guests this evening, will the speech of the president last week in Cairo, will it cause any of the major players in the Middle East to act differently in the future?
I think it will. I think it was a successful speech in terms of showing the genuineness of the United States, represented by its president, Barack Obama. And I think the people took good note that there is a change in direction in terms of where the United States wants to go with the relationship, in its relationship with the Muslim majority world.
Joe Morris also joins us. Normally we introduce him as our conservative Republican. You were also the first president of B'nai B'rith in the Midwest. You're a law partner at Morris and De La Rosa, and also you're a former Reagan Justice Department official. Your answer to the same question?
I think it will have an effect. I hope it does. The effect, however, may not be among the governments of the Middle East. I think the president here was trying to speak over the heads of governments in some respects. There were a couple of messages in the speech addressed to important Middle Eastern governments, but the really remarkable and new and different thing about the speech was that the president was speaking over the heads of governments to Muslim people in general, Arab people in particular, and trying to send a message directly to them in an effort to change hearts and minds about the United States, about relations among the three great Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and about how they relate to their own governments and their own civilizations.
Gidi Nishat also joins us. She's a research fellow at the Hoover Institution, also teaches Islamic and Middle Eastern history at the University of Illinois at Chicago, just a few blocks from where we do this broadcast. Gidi was born in Baghdad, but has been an American citizen since 1978. Your answer to the same question: anybody going to act differently based on the words out of Cairo last week?
Well, that remains to be seen. I think, as both Ahmad and Joe have said, it sent a very different message, very positive, and what really made me happy was that it gave recognition to the interconnection of these different, very major, important faiths in the region. But we have to see what will happen next. Now, will Mrs. Clinton be able to implement some of the things that the president has mentioned in his speech? What would be the reaction of some of the governments? What will be our reaction to, let's say, what's going on in Lebanon with the Lebanese election and what's going to happen in Iran? But I think it's a wonderful first step. I was absolutely impressed by the way the president spoke, by his effort to reach to the people, as Joe said, over the heads of government. So I thought it was an excellent first step.
Now, talking about to the audience, you have the leaders of the Middle East, you have the Arab street, and then you have the American street. Speak to each of those audiences and how this speech might have played there, Ahmad. What about just the difference between the leaders? Let's talk about your native country of Egypt. Let's talk about, the leaders and the people in the street don't necessarily see eye to eye there.
I agree with that, and I agree with Joe earlier that this speech was mostly directed at the people. I think it's evidenced by the fact that President Mubarak of Egypt, kept a pretty low-key profile during this visit. He met with President Obama for a few minutes, but was not there at the airport and was not there at the speech itself, perhaps through the design of the Obama administration. They wanted to make sure that this message was being clearly perceived as being sent to the people. So I think I don't have high expectations in terms of change from Arab or Muslim majority country governments. More so, I expect the people to have a change in heart in terms of how they perceive the United States.
And what should be from the Arab perspective, what should be the next step? If this was an olive branch of at least a rhetorical olive branch from the President of the United States, what should be the proper response from leadership in the Arab world?
I think the key word is rhetorical. You're right. This was a speech. It was a speech of words. Discourse is important. Words are important. But what's equally important, if not more, is following up through policy and action. And that's precisely what the people and the governments are going to be waiting to see.
And Joe, what do you think that might be?
Well, I think it's right. Words are important. This is not the first president to have spoken to Islamic audiences. President Dwight Eisenhower, 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago, spoke at the inauguration, the dedication of the Islamic Center in Washington, D.C., the mosque that President Bush, George W. Bush, spoke at the week of the events of September 11th. But I think something very interesting that the president did was he chose as his location Cairo University, in the heart of Cairo, actually on the west side of the river in Giza, not too far from the pyramids. There are three great universities in Cairo, and he mentioned two of the three. He mentioned Al-Azhar, which is about 1,000 years old, and is one of the great global institutions of learning. It's up there in terms of civilizational history in age with the universities of Bologna, Paris, Oxford, Cambridge, and is a place where Western civilization was kept alive and retransmitted to Europe. And the president made passing note of that. Cairo University is about 100 years old. That was the actual venue of the place, and is, I think, generally recognized as a more or less secular institution in Egypt. The third university is now in the suburbs. It's American University at Cairo. The president didn't go there. He went to this post medieval and then institution and invoked the name of the great 1,000-year-old Al-Azhar religious university. What's that all about? I think the significance there is that the president was saying this isn't so much a political speech as it is an address from one part of Western civilization to another part of Western civilization, and trying to open a dialogue well beyond merely the political boundary. Certainly the president had to address current political policy issues either to establish his bona fides or because a couple of them, including the question of Iran's acquisition of nuclear weapons, is just so hot. But really, the president's agenda, it seemed to me, was very different. It was trying to awaken or reawaken the masses of Islamic civilization to their own civilization and to opportunities to get back in the action of Western civ.
Gideon Lashad, I know you have a response to that, but we do have to pause. 1-800-723-8229. From coast to coast and border to border, talking tonight about President Obama's speech last week in Cairo, Egypt, speaking to the Muslim world. Your reaction, 1-800-723-8289. Back shortly from Chicago.